There's a four-letter word carved into the tiny lap-sized desk, almost a burned-in look from years of ink pen tracing. You feel hard stalactites of gum on its underside and a sharp chill of cold metal against your bare knee. As the droning window unit pumps in a dusty, frozen air, an oblivious adult squeaks a nub of chalk across a green chalkboard. My guess is you knew exactly where we were, even without hearing the word school. The setting is where and when your story takes place. In the prior episode, Tim and I offered 2 tips for building a setting that sings. The first tip is to avoid making your setting arbitrary. Where a story takes place should matter, and if you've chosen well, it should be impractical or inconceivable to relocate the narrative to a new place and time. A strong setting is a support system that reveals character, increases conflict, and shines a spotlight on your theme. If you can pick up your narrative and just plop it down somewhere new, maybe the setting you've chosen just isn't working hard enough. My favorite action movie, Aliens, is a great example of how setting should support the action. The location, planet LV-426, is isolated and remote, meaning the heroes cannot expect help should they get into trouble. Using the same location from the first movie, Alien, establishes Ripley's backstory, and having her awake from cryogenic sleep explains why her anger, fear, and dread are so fresh and unprocessed, despite all the years that have passed. When Ripley returns to the planet, now a colony world, she and the Marines experience it as an abandoned ghost town, increasing suspense and mystery. Once the full action commences and the story pivots to one of survival, the setting itself becomes a deadly risk where the atmospheric processor threatens to, and then ultimately does, explode. At the end, back on the ship, Ripley battles the alien queen in a motorized forklift suit, and because her ability to skillfully operate this equipment was perfectly established in Act 1, it feels like an inevitable and satisfying payoff. Ending the film in space creates the opportunity for the alien queen to be jettisoned out of the airlock. Lastly, Ripley tucks in Newt for the long cryo-sleep ride home, thus completing Ripley's character arc and mirroring the end of the first movie. It would have been hard to pick up any piece of this story and relocate it to a new setting without losing something essential from the character's action or theme. In my opinion, choosing a different setting would have completely derailed this narrative. The second tip in building a setting that sings is to work from the inside out. When the reader experiences the setting, it is more immediate and more powerful to them than a simple description. We should try to use all our senses while exploring our setting so that our reader's imagination can transport them. Take, for example, a sunset on a beach. You can describe the way things look, the fluffy pink clouds on the horizon, the dark blue water, the brown sugar sand. But notice how the setting ramps up when a character kicks off their sandals and squeezes the gritty sand between their toes. How the main beach is warm and dry, but the sand by the water is packed tight, ice cold and wet, where the receding tide has washed it smooth. That beach is more real to us now because we have experienced it with our senses, not just looked at it with our eyes. This is crucial to building the setting from the inside out. You may be surprised with what your mind's eye lingers on when you write with your experiential setting in mind. Trust your instincts and write what you can see, smell, taste, hear, and feel. I used my own sense memory of being on a beach, and that is why the setting is easier to experience. If I had never set foot on a beach, I would not have been able to describe it quite the same way. When selecting your setting, trust your instincts and give yourself the freedom to write what interests you without forcing the narrative down a specific thematic path. During your first draft, don't worry about having every little detail perfected. Also, don't worry about why you've chosen this particular setting. Just trust that your subconscious picked it for a reason, then do your best to build it from the inside out. In your next draft, examine the where and when, scene by scene, and ask yourself, what about this place helps me express character, increase conflict, or spotlight theme? If you have a good answer for that scene's setting, don't change it. However, if the scene's location seems more generic, try out a new location for that scene that allows a character to showcase their personality, that creates an obstacle for your character, or that spotlights the story's big idea. See you next week. Start writing.